Ancestry tests might seem like they're innocent, but in the end, you're sending away your DNA. So maybe they should be the ones paying you? From the police wanting your DNA, to find out some shocking secrets about your family's past, here are 10 reasons not to do an ancestry test.
But before we get started today, we'd like to give a quick shout out to one of our fans over here. We appreciate your insight and your comments, and we'd like to hear more.
Number 10. Health and life insurance risks. It's understandable to want to know exactly where your ancestors came from, and many people who have some questions about their parents might want to use these. However, once you get your DNA sent off to these companies, they now know a lot more about you than just your nationalities. For example, it's been noted that scientists can study your DNA closely, and this information can end up in the hands of health insurance companies who might want to raise your rates. If the tests show that you might be more susceptible to certain genetic diseases, who will want to insure you then? If the life insurance companies also find out that you may have a gene that might cause heart disease, for example, they could easily use that against you and to their advantage and charge you more than if they didn't check out your DNA. There are only currently 17 different states that have laws restricting life insurance companies demanding DNA. But many will be willing to get a hold of your genetic information in some shady fashion. Number 9. Maybe they should pay you. There's nothing wrong with wanting to know what parts of the world your family came from most of the time. But the main problem is becoming a part of a huge genetic database where scientists have a large amount of private information stored on you and millions of people. It's also been noted that if you have a rare genetic condition, which can be used for finding a cure for cancer, for example, you wouldn't even know that they were making millions off you the whole time. Don't take that chance. According to Yale, a disclosed family in Connecticut who chose not to identify themselves has extremely high bone density to the point where it's impossible to break them. It's said that if they wanted to, they could technically withstand a collision with a train and walk away with only flesh wounds. Yale hopes this to be an important discovery and hope to mimic the effect for cures and drugs in the future. Imagine having a groundbreaking genetic makeup such as this, and then when it arrives into the hands of scientists, the scientists will make the money off it. They'll end up with all the credit, possibly make millions of dollars, and what do you get? Nothing. In fact, you'd be losing money by paying for the DNA test. Number 8. Police want it. You might have the right to remain silent, but the DNA data that you've given up for an ancestry test can be used against you in the court of law. If you're familiar with the Golden State Killer, then you'll understand how private your DNA test samples are. After decades of searching for the man who committed dozens of murders in the Sacramento area, they were able to find him because of a DNA database from GED Match. In fact, the suspect wasn't even the one who sent his DNA off to the company, but a family member who wanted to know their ancestry. The DNA partially matched the DNA found at the crime scene, which drastically shrank the numbers of suspects to just one family. It seems like only a matter of time before police begin to quote-unquote DNA fingerprint everyone so no criminal feels safe. While it might sound like a good idea, many privacy advocates feel as though it turns family members into genetic informants without them even knowing about it. It also casts a wide amount of suspicion on many people with the similar genetics, and not just the person who committed the crime. Hopefully you don't accidentally leave your DNA in the wrong spot where a murder took place. What do you think about the police having a DNA database on the public? Let us know in the comments section and maybe we'll feature you in an upcoming video. Number 7. Google wants your DNA. DNA ancestry tests are similar to Facebook in a sense. It all started off to be fun and games until you realize that by participating, you are actually sacrificing your privacy. You have to wonder if someone just needs to put an end to all this biotechnology, and in the end, we may all be begging for our DNA back. Google is now building an AI that can build your genetic sequence. It's what's known as deep variant, and it should be able to closely identify any mutations in DNA that you might have picked up from your parents. Another company called 23andMe, situated in Mountain View, California, is Google's new DNA ancestry site. They pinky promise they'll keep your genetic makeup private, but should we really trust them? If you thought it already was bad giving your DNA to companies like GED Match, think of what tech giants such as Google are capable of with your DNA. In 2018, Bill Gates invested a huge amount of money into Ginkgo Bioworks, which will reconfigure DNA of organisms to create products such as perfume, drink sweeteners, and fertilizer replacements. The company would be able to print genomes and insert them into bacteria in order to create more and more Monsanto-like products. It's quite frightening, and we suggest you do a little research on this one for yourself. Number 6. Could be used for cloning? We know it might sound far-fetched, but scientists have already successfully cloned animals such as dogs and sheep. How far away are we from cloning humans? With all this genetic makeup ending up in the hands of private scientists with lots of resources to back up the project, how far away are we? Consider how many advancements we've made in genetics since the 1990s when Dolly the sheep was cloned. You'll realize the day could be here any moment now. We've already seen from tech companies their lack of ethics when it comes to morals, so that really shouldn't be holding them back. Now imagine the government gets involved with the tech companies and wants to create an army of genetically superior soldiers, or even create a new state where only people who have certain genetics are allowed. The possibilities really seem endless, and while it might sound like all science fiction at the moment, China has already succeeded in cloning monkeys just last year. This was a huge groundbreaker for cloning humans, especially since macaque monkeys share 93% of the same DNA as Homo sapiens. Cloned dogs already sell for $100,000 in South Korea. How much would you spend for a beautiful cloned child with no genetic problems? Maybe they can clone Kate Upton at a mass production cloning facility? Who knows? Number 5. Can you handle the truth? Not only can DNA be court-ordered for more and more men to pay child support, it can also reveal some family secrets that you might not be ready to handle. If you grew up your entire life believing a certain person was your father, just to find out that it was all a lie and your mom was just kind of sleeping around, would it be better to know the truth that you were actually adopted, or the person you thought was your father was tricked by your mother to get him to pay child support? What kind of consequences could it have on your so-called family? Would you ever be able to trust your parents ever again? A man named David Jancic was adopted as a baby and lived with his adopted family, believing that they were actually his biological parents. DNA tests proved otherwise. Another case of a shocking revelation took place when it was revealed that a man named Dick Nelson found out that he was actually the result of one of his believed to be sisters getting pregnant by a deputy sheriff. Mind blown or what? Some of those stories get pretty wild, and you have to wonder if knowing the truth is really worth it. You might even find out that you're half reptilian. Number 4. Results can be inaccurate. Ancestry tests are known to be accurate when it comes to finding out your own ethnic makeup, but more tests will not only tell you that, but also tell you that if you have any dangerous genetic mutations. If you're really going to go through all the time and effort to find out if you have any bad genomes, maybe you should just go see a doctor. A genetics magazine published that 40% of variants in a variety of genes were reported, and the testing kit's raw data were false positives. That basically meant that they messed up a lot and identified harmless mutated genes as a dangerous one. Shirley Wu, one of the directors at 23andMe, was confronted with the errors, and she stated that the results are not for medical or diagnostical use. You'd hate to get back results that say you got something serious and it turns out that someone didn't do their job right for that $200 you spent. Number 3. Your DNA data could get hacked. You might not realize how important your DNA data is until it gets hacked. In 2018, a site called MyHeritage stated that a hacker was able to infiltrate the system and stole email addresses of 92 million people. Not only is it kind of crazy that 92 million people have already taken these analysis, you have to wonder how secure your private DNA data is, even if some companies say they won't share it. In this case, the patient's genetic info wasn't stolen, but what would have happened if it did? Especially with giant tech industries after your genetic data, how hard would it be for one of their top employees to hack into a system like that and take it? The bottom line is that the systems aren't secure, and they'll even sell out if they feel like it. Which brings me to my next one. Number 2. Sold to the highest bidder. It appears as though Big Pharma and 23andMe are partnered up, but to utilize all the genetic data you and everyone else has given up in order to create new drugs, all based on the information. The pharmaceutical conglomerate GlaxoSmithKline signed a $300 million deal, which means that they'll hand over everything they know to these guys. Customers appear to have the option to opt in and opt out as they please in regards to their DNA being used for research purposes, but it might be a little bit more complicated than just that. In their privacy statement, it states that if you opt out, your genetic information and self-reported info may still be used by us and shared with our third-party service providers as outlined in the privacy statement. That basically means you're screwed if you opt in and you're screwed if you opt out. They typically rely on people not wanting to read this massive and complicated privacy statement, but if you do, it's pretty crazy. Number 1. Does it really matter? From a young age, we're brought up to believe that it really shouldn't matter whether we're German, Irish, Scandinavian, Jewish, Neanderthal, etc. We should all just love each other no matter what our background is, right? Going by this logic, should we really care what exactly our ethnicity is? And being proud of that heritage can be considered to be racist by many. Of course, it's nice to know our background, but at the end of the day, can't we just be proud of who we are without separating into different ethnicities? Many social justice warriors are saying that it doesn't seem to be okay to be proud of your European ancestors anyway. In any case, though, finding out your exact ethnicity doesn't appear to be fulfilling anything besides your own personal reasons, and private risks are involved, which will ultimately prove to be another way for the elite to gain an advantage by gathering more information on the people.
So what'd you guys think of that video? Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and check out my channel over here, American Eye. We'll see you there.